Awakening in darkness. In the far reaches of the galaxy, fear had become a constant companion for many species. The looming shadow of an unknown threat had driven entire civilizations to the brink of despair. Yet, amid this chaos, there was a glimmer of hope, a hope buried deep within a forgotten corner of the galaxy, where humanity lay in cryo-sleep, waiting for the right moment to awaken. The ship's cryo chambers hissed softly as they began to open, releasing a cold mist into the dimly lit chamber. Phillips, a xenobiologist, was the first to awaken. His eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the darkness. Instinctively, his mind went into high alert as he took in the sight of his fellow survivors slowly emerging from their long slumber. A sense of unease gnawed at Phillips. Something had gone wrong. This was not how their revival was supposed to happen. He quickly unstrapped himself and moved toward the control panel, where Ramos, the ship's engineer, was already hard at work. "Cryo system malfunction," Ramos reported grimly, his hands flying over the controls. "We've got pods failing left and right. If we don't stabilize them soon, we'll lose the rest of the passengers." Phillips nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Let's fix this," he said, joining Ramos in a frantic effort to prevent further catastrophe. As they worked, the ship's systems slowly came back online, revealing more about their situation. Jameson, the diplomat, and Sergeant Hawkins, the military leader, gathered nearby, analyzing the sparse information available on the planet they were now orbiting. The data was troubling. "We need a plan," Jameson murmured, his eyes scanning the alien symbols scrolling across the screen. "If these creatures are as advanced as they seem, we can't afford to make a wrong move." Hawkins grunted in agreement, his hand resting on the butt of his sidearm. "Diplomacy is all well and good, but we need to be prepared for anything. These aliens might not take kindly to a bunch of refugees showing up unannounced." The ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, and the crew gathered at the viewports, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Below them stretched a sprawling alien metropolis, its gleaming spires and sleek vehicles a testament to a civilization far more advanced than anything humanity had ever known. As the ship touched down on the outskirts of the city, the humans disembarked, each step heavy with the weight of their uncertain future. They were met by a delegation of alien beings, their towering forms both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Philip stepped forward, extending a hand in greeting. But he faltered at the look of disdain on the alien leader's face. This creature, known as BOS, regarded the humans with a mixture of curiosity and condescension, as if they were little more than primitive creatures to be studied and patronized. In that moment, Phillips realized the true gravity of their situation. They were strangers in a strange land, their very existence dependent on the whims of a superior species. If they couldn't find a way to prove their worth, to carve out a place in this new world, they would be doomed to fade into obscurity, a mere footnote in the history of this advanced civilization. The future of the human race hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Strangers in a strange land, the humans were led to their temporary accommodations, a stark contrast to the luxuries they had once known on Earth. The quarters provided by the aliens were utilitarian at best, but they represented something more important: a chance at survival. Phillips wasted no time in diving into his study of the alien culture and biology. He spent long hours in the laboratory, poring over ancient texts and scientific journals. His mind raced with possibilities, driven by a deep-seated desire to understand this new world and its inhabitants. It was during one of these late-night research sessions that Phillips met Zara, a brilliant scientist from the alien race. Her intellect and curiosity mirrored his own, and the two quickly formed a bond over their shared love of discovery. Together, they pushed the boundaries of what was known, each new breakthrough fueling their determination to find a way for humans and aliens to coexist. Meanwhile, Jameson prepared meticulously for his meeting with the Alien High Council. He rehearsed his arguments until they flowed like water, his voice steady and convincing. He spoke of the potential for peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit, his words carefully chosen to appeal to the Council's logic and sense of fairness. The alien leaders listened intently, their expressions unreadable. But Jameson could sense a glimmer of hope in their eyes, a hope that perhaps, just perhaps, humanity might find a place among the stars after all. On the training grounds, Sergeant Hawkins sparred with Theon, a seasoned warrior from the alien race. Their movements were a blur of speed and precision, each testing the limits of the other's skill. As they fought, Hawkins couldn't help but marvel at the aliens' advanced tactics and technology. But with that admiration came a growing concern about what it could mean for humanity's future. Ramos, on the other hand, was lost in the wonders of alien engineering. He marveled at the sleek lines and pulsing energy of their propulsion systems, his fingers itching to take them apart and understand their secrets. Elra, a young prodigy from the alien race, watched him work with a mixture of amusement and admiration. Together they pushed the boundaries of what was possible, their minds dancing with visions of a brighter tomorrow. But even as the human survivors made strides toward integration, dark currents swirled beneath the surface. In shadowy corners and hidden chambers, Zorn and his followers whispered poisonous words, stoking the flames of fear and hatred. And in the depths of the alien stronghold, Kell sharpened his blades and plotted his next move, his eyes glinting with malice. The human survivors remained oblivious to the gathering storm, their focus solely on the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. They knew that their every action, their every word, could tip the balance between acceptance and annihilation. And so, they pressed on, driven by the unshakable conviction that they would not only survive, but thrive in this brave new world. The turning tide days turned into weeks as the human survivors continued to adapt to their new environment. Phillips and Zara's collaboration bore fruit as they made groundbreaking discoveries in genetic hybridization, leading to the development of Earth crops that could thrive in alien soil. This breakthrough was a significant step toward establishing a sustainable human presence on the planet. Meanwhile, Jameson's diplomatic efforts began to show promise. After countless meetings and negotiations, the High Council agreed to sign the Humkai Accord, a treaty that would allow humans to live and work alongside the alien population while ensuring that the aliens' interests were protected. However, there was one major caveat. The awakening of additional humans from cryostasis would require explicit approval from the Council. Jameson knew the weight of this decision. It meant that every life they chose to awaken was a gamble, a roll of the dice that could either strengthen their position or lead to disaster. In the military district, Sergeant Hawkins continued to build trust with Theon and his fellow warriors. Their training sessions had evolved into a mutual exchange of tactics and strategies, each side learning from the other. But during one such session, Hawkins stumbled upon something disturbing. A datapad containing encrypted messages that pointed to a weapons cache and a recruitment effort by Kell, the leader of the alien purists. "We must alert command immediately," Theon urged, his mandibles flaring in alarm. The discovery confirmed their worst fears. The purists were preparing for something big, and time was running out. Back in the engineering sector, Ramos and Lara's work reached new heights as they developed a prototype quantum flux stabilizer that, when integrated with the alien graviton drive, could potentially achieve faster than light travel. Their breakthrough attracted the attention of both human and alien leaders, and soon crowds gathered outside the engineering complex to catch a glimpse of the visionaries who might reshape the future of space travel. But even as these triumphs unfolded, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. In the halls of power, Zorn's voice grew louder, amplified by fear and prejudice. He rallied support among those who feared the human presence, painting them as a threat to the alien way of life. "We must protect our culture, our way of life," Zorn declared to a rapt audience. "The humans must be contained for their safety and ours." His words found fertile ground among those who were already wary of change, and soon the city buzzed with heated debates about the human presence. Deep in the shadows of the metropolis, Kell received an encoded transmission from one of the humans still in cryostasis. The figure on the screen, distorted but recognizable, spoke with bitterness. "We're ready. Just give us the signal, and we'll show those traitors what it means to abandon their own kind. Kel's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The pieces were falling into place. Soon, very soon, he would strike a blow that would shake the foundation of this fragile alliance. The breaking point. The calm of the night was shattered by a deafening explosion. Phillips jolted awake, his heart racing as acrid smoke filled the air. He quickly scrambled to his feet and grabbed his comms device, calling out to his team. "We're under attack!" Jameson's voice crackled through the device, barely audible over the sounds of chaos. "The Purists! They're targeting us!" The breaking point continued. Smoke billowed from the wreckage. The Purist faction, led by the enigmatic Kel, had launched a coordinated assault on key facilities throughout the city. The carefully constructed peace between humans and the alien inhabitants was unraveling at a terrifying pace. Phillips quickly assessed the situation, his mind racing with possibilities. He could see Ramos frantically directing engineers to contain fires and stabilize the infrastructure, while Sergeant Hawkins and Theon were coordinating defensive measures with what remained of their forces. Jameson was huddled over a holo map with a group of alien and human leaders, trying to form a coherent response to the crisis. "The Purists have struck across multiple sectors," Jameson briefed them, his voice strained with exhaustion. "They're targeting our food supplies, energy plants, and communication hubs. It's an all-out attack designed to cripple us." Hawkins growled in frustration. "We need to strike back hard and fast. We can't let them gain the upper hand," Phillips interjected, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We have to be careful. If we respond with overwhelming force, we risk escalating the conflict into a full-blown war. We need to isolate the Purists without alienating the population that still supports them." As they debated the best course of action, the gravity of the situation became clear. The Purists were not just a fringe group. They had substantial support, both from disillusioned humans and a significant portion of the alien populace who feared the changes brought by human integration. Meanwhile, in the shadows, Kel's forces were emboldened by their initial success. Kel himself was overseeing the sabotage of a critical energy plant, a grim smile on his face as he watched the destruction unfold. "This is just the beginning," Kel whispered to himself, his eyes glinting with malice. "Soon they'll see that the only way forward is through the old ways, the pure ways." Back at the command center, Phillips and Zara worked together, trying to find a solution to the escalating crisis. Zara was deeply troubled by the growing divide within her people, and Phillips could see the pain in her eyes as they reviewed the latest reports of casualties. "We can't let this continue," Zara said softly, her voice filled with determination. "If we don't find a way to stop Kel and his followers, everything we've worked for will be lost." Phillips nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "We need to find a way to cut off their support," he said. "If we can expose the lies Kel is spreading and show the people the truth, we might have a chance." The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. Phillips and Zara decided to launch a counter-information campaign, using the advanced alien communication networks to broadcast messages of unity and cooperation. They also enlisted the help of influential figures within both human and alien societies to speak out against the Purists. As the messages began to spread, there were signs of hope. Some factions within the alien population started to distance themselves from Kel, realizing that his vision of a divided society would only lead to ruin. But Kel was not so easily deterred. In a final, desperate move, Kel ordered his forces to strike at the heart of the city, targeting the central government building where the High Council and human leaders were coordinating their response. If he could decapitate the leadership, the alliance would crumble. Phillips, Zara, and their team were in the middle of a critical strategy session when the attack began. Explosions rocked the building and the lights flickered as the power grid took a direct hit. "Get down!" Hawkins shouted, tackling Phillips to the ground as debris rained down around them. The room was plunged into chaos, with smoke and dust filling the air. Phillips struggled to his feet, coughing and wiping the soot from his face. "We need to get everyone out of here," he said, helping Zara up. As they made their way through the damaged corridors, they encountered pockets of resistance. Kell's forces were inside the building, hunting down the leaders. Hawkins and Theon led the charge, fending off attackers as they tried to reach the secure evacuation point. The fighting was brutal, and losses were heavy on both sides. But despite the chaos, Phillips noticed something remarkable. Humans and aliens were fighting side by side, united against a common enemy. The bond they had forged in the days and weeks leading up to this moment was holding strong, even under the most extreme pressure. Finally, they reached the evacuation point. Jameson was there, coordinating the escape routes for the surviving leaders. "We're almost out of time," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to get to the secure bunker before they breach the inner defenses." As they hurried to the bunker, Phillips couldn't help but think of the precarious situation they were in. They had managed to hold off the Purists for now, but the city was still in danger, and Kell was still out there, plotting his next move. The last stand. The High Council building was in ruins, and the city was on the brink of collapse. The Purists had pushed the alliance to its breaking point, and now, all that stood between them and total victory was a small band of defenders holding the line at the city's central power plant. Phillips, Zara, Hawkins, and Theon were among them, having narrowly escaped the destruction of the government building. The decision had been made to make their last stand at the power plant, the beating heart of the city's energy network. If the Purists captured it, they would plunge the city into darkness and chaos, ensuring their victory. "We have to hold this position at all costs," Hawkins said grimly as they prepared for the coming assault. "If they take the plant, it's over." The defenders fortified their positions, setting up barricades and defensive turrets. Zara and Phillips worked feverishly to rig the plant systems for manual control, ensuring that the Purists couldn't simply take it over remotely. "We need to be ready for anything," Zara warned as she calibrated the energy relays. "They're going to throw everything they have at us, and throw everything they did." The Purists came in waves, their forces bolstered by heavy weapons and advanced combat drones. The defenders fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Despite their best efforts, the Purists slowly pushed them back, closer and closer to the plant's control center. Phillips and Zara worked frantically to keep the power grid online, but they knew it was only a matter of time before the Purists broke through. The situation grew increasingly desperate as the Purists began to deploy heavy artillery, targeting the plant's main reactor. "If that reactor goes, we lose everything," Phillips said, his voice laced with urgency. "We need to take out those artillery units." Hawkins nodded, already formulating a plan. "Theon and I will lead a strike team to neutralize the artillery. Phillips, Zara, you two hold the control center. If we're not back in 20 minutes, you need to get out of here and blow the plant." Phillips and Zara exchanged a grim look. "We understand," Zara said softly. Hawkins and Theon gathered a small team of volunteers and set out on their mission, leaving Phillips and Zara to hold the control center. The minutes ticked by agonizingly slowly as they waited, the sounds of battle echoing through the walls. Then, the door to the control center exploded inward and a squad of Purists stormed in. Phillips and Zara ducked behind cover, exchanging fire with the intruders. The fight was intense, but the defenders were outmatched. Just as it seemed they would be overwhelmed, a flash of movement caught Phillips's eye. Hawkins and Theon burst into the room, their armor scorched and battered, but their determination unwavering. They quickly dispatched the remaining Purists and moved to secure the control center. "We took out the artillery," Hawkins said, panting from exertion. "But they're still coming. We need to rig this place to blow and get out of here." As they prepared the explosives, Phillips couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung over them. This was their last stand, and even if they succeeded in destroying the plant, the city would be plunged into darkness. The future looked bleak, but they had no choice but to see it through. With the explosives set, they retreated to the evacuation point. The defenders who remained were exhausted, their numbers severely depleted. As they made their way to the extraction site, Phillips looked back at the power plant one last time. "Do it," he said, his voice heavy with resolve. Hawkins pressed the detonator, and a massive explosion rocked the city as the power plant went up in flames. The defenders watched as the shockwave rippled through the skyline, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the air. They had succeeded in denying the Purists their victory, but at what cost? The city was in ruins, and the power grid was offline. As the survivors regrouped, they knew that the battle was far from over. The aftermath. The city lay in ruins, its once gleaming towers now reduced to rubble. The power plant's destruction had plunged the metropolis into darkness, and the survivors were scattered, trying to regroup in the midst of the devastation. Phillips, Zara, Hawkins, and Theon led the remaining defenders to a makeshift base of operations, a fortified bunker deep underground that had survived the Purist assault. They were battered and bruised, but they were alive, and they still had a chance to turn the tide. Inside the bunker, the atmosphere was tense. The room was filled with injured soldiers, hastily assembled medical supplies, and the hum of emergency generators. Everyone was on edge, knowing that the Purists would be back to finish what they started. "We need to rebuild our defenses and secure a new power source," Ramos said, addressing the group. "Without power, we're sitting ducks." Jameson, who had narrowly escaped the Purists' ambush at the government building, spoke up. "We also need to reach out to the civilian population. Many of them are still in hiding, and if we can rally them to our cause, we might have a fighting chance." Zara nodded in agreement. "We need to show them that we're not beaten, that we still have hope." The group quickly set to work, each member focusing on their area of expertise. Phillips and Zara began coordinating with engineers to jury-rig a temporary power source from the bunker's emergency generators. Hawkins and Theon organized patrols and fortified the bunker's defenses, while Jameson and Ramos worked on broadcasting a message of hope to the city's survivors. As they labored, word began to spread of the Purists' growing desperation. Kell's forces had suffered heavy losses in the assault on the power plant, and they were struggling to maintain control over the areas they had captured. The Purist movement, once so confident, was beginning to fracture under the strain. But Kell was not finished. He had one last card to play, a weapon of unimaginable power hidden deep within the city. If he couldn't win through conventional means, he would ensure that no one won at all. Phillips and Zara were working on the power grid when they received the news. A small team of scouts had discovered a hidden Purist base, heavily fortified and surrounded by advanced defenses. Inside, they had detected energy signatures that suggested the presence of a massive, untested weapon. "This could be it," Phillips said, his mind racing with the implications. "If they use that weapon, it could wipe out the entire city." "We have to stop them," Zara replied, her voice filled with determination. "This is our last chance." The decision was made quickly. They would mount a final assault on the Purist base, targeting the weapon before it could be deployed. It was a suicide mission, but they had no other choice. The final battle. The final battle was unlike anything they had faced before. As the combined human-alien forces converged on the Purist base, they encountered heavy resistance. Kell had fortified his stronghold with the last of his forces, and they fought with a desperation born of fanaticism. Phillips, Zara, Hawkins, and Theon led the charge, each one knowing that this could be their last stand. The air was thick with the sounds of battle, gunfire, explosions, and the screams of the wounded. The ground shook as the Purists unleashed everything they had, determined to take as many of their enemies with them as possible. But the defenders pressed on, inching closer to the heart of the base. They knew that if they could just reach the weapon and disable it, they could end the conflict once and for all. As they fought their way through the base, Phillips and Zara worked together to bypass the security systems and reach the weapon's control room. Time was running out. The energy readings were spiking, indicating that the weapon was close to being fully charged.